Hi and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to have a look at the advanced features of the TP-Link TL-WR841N. This is a 2.4 GHz wireless N router. It seems to be quite popular and you could pick one up for about £15 on Amazon, so it's actually quite really cheap. So this is the advanced settings. So this is where you log in to the router using your computer or tablet or phone using the IP address and the web interface. So as you can see, if we start off with the status, you can see that here it shows you all the main functions of the router and the main information. So you have the firmware version, the hardware version that you have, and I do believe this is version 11 of this model, and you can go all the way up to version 14. This version, and then version all the way, I think 12, 13 and 14 all have different versions of firmware that have different features, even though the hardware is still the same. So the LAN, under LAN you can see here the MAC address, the IP address, and your subnet mask. So that's for your local network. And then underneath is your wireless network details, so you can see what your wireless name is, your SSID, a type of connection it is, the mode. So you've got a wireless 11 802.11b, G and N mixed, and then you have your channel width, so that's automatic. So normally you can either choose 20 megahertz or 40. Then your channel, so it's automatically selected auto, and it's currently selected on channel 10, and your MAC address, and then the WDS status. And then you have the WAN, so that's where your details will be if once it's plugged in and connected to the internet. That will be your, where it states your IP address, that will be your IP address to the internet. And then you'll have your default gateway, so that would normally be the same. It would be 192.168.0.1, and then your DNS servers of whatever your ISP have provided. And then you have some traffic statistics information on how much information or data has been received and sent. And it's also quite helpful as well in the right hand column. If you're not too sure what these are, it does have really good explanations down the side here to explain what each of these features are. Next is the quick setup. So here you can see that you can do a quick setup, and we'll do that as for an example. So if we click next, you can now go along and see the different types of internet connections you've got. So here you have auto detect, dynamic IP, static IP, PPPoE, and then the rest down here. As you can see, most fiber internet connections and things like that will be, like I'm on with BT, is going to be the PPPoE. So click on that, and then next, and then it will ask you for your username. So normally for BT, this is BT Home Hub, and then it will be at btinternet.com, and then the password is BT. And then you can set the secondary connections disabled, and again it does have information on the right hand side where it gives you more information. And you click next. Next is the wireless radio, so of course you want to leave that enabled, but here's where you can change the name of your wireless network. So in this instance I'll keep it the same, and I'll change this to the United Kingdom. And it says here as well, if you're selecting the wrong country it can cause interference, so just close that. And then you can see what mode. So here, unless you've got very very old Wi-Fi products, then personally I would just choose 11N, because there's very few products now that've got wireless B and G, but if you do have it, you can leave it on, the last option. But as I have the oldest options, products I have 11N, I'll just select that. Channel width I'll leave as auto, and then the channel I'll let it select the best channel as well. And then you can see the network password, so here you can choose your network password, and of course I'll just, for this example, I'll leave it as a default, and then you click next, and then it will say once here it's all set up, you click finish, and then it will restart the router. Next option we have down here is WPS, so that's the Wi-Fi protected setup. So this is where you push the button on your device that you want to set up, and then you push the button on your router, and then they automatically connect. Again, I would advise that you actually disable this option. I know it's quite convenient to set new products up, but there's a lot of security issues around this, and I would literally disable it. That's just my personal opinion. So now we move on to network, and here is where we can see the internet or the WAN information, so your IP address to the internet. And then if we go down here, you can see you've got primary DNS and secondary DNS, and I would advise normally to update these and change these. So you would tick that box, and then you would change the numbers here. These are your default, perhaps from a network to Google's, and then Google's would be 8.88, and then you change the second one again to the domain DNS for Google, their secondary. You can get that normally from their website. So yeah, so then you would click save, and then it would go, and again you've got information down here about primary DNSs and everything else if you want any more information. Mac clone, I would normally leave that alone. I don't think normally you need to worry about this, but again, there's the option if you want it. Next is LAN, so this is your IP address of your router when you come to log into this actual web interface. Normally you can leave it the same and leave all the options the same as well. You don't need to change anything here. Next down is wireless options. So again, like we set up on the quick setup, wireless network name, so you can change it, select your region, and then of course the mode you can choose, and your channel width and bandwidth and everything else. You've got three options there to enable wireless radio, so of course you want that on, and enable your SSID broadcast, and then you've got enable WDS bridge. It does have more information around here, so when you do select this function, the router can bridge to another WLANs, so another router, but I haven't tried this function, so I'm not too sure how well it actually does, but the option is there. So wireless security, again, most advisable is to leave it on the WPA and WPA2, and I would recommend you don't have it on automatic, but you have it on WPA2 PSK, and then it's AES as well with a strong password. I wouldn't use WEP at all. Enterprise is only if you've really got it set up on your network, but not many home networks will have that. So I'd leave it with the recommended, but I wouldn't leave it on auto. I'd put it on WPA2 because most devices, how many years old, still use this, and it's more secure. And of course, because this is a £15 router, it doesn't support the WPA3, and I don't think it probably will do with the age of the router. Wireless MAC filtering, so again it's another security feature. So once all your devices have connected, you can add them on here, so any new device that tries to connect to your network, it'll block. So it is another security feature. Of course it's not foolproof, but it's an extra layer that it'll give you more security. And again, there's the information here on if you want to enable it. So and then you've got the advanced here, so of course these ones you normally would leave the same and wouldn't change them. Your transmit power, leave on high because you probably want the best distance. and then all the rest options as well. And again, you can go through each individual. You can pause the video and have a look on the right hand side to see which one of these. Then you have your wireless statistics, so then it show you how many devices are connected, and you can click the refresh button and I'll give you a list also of how many devices are connected. Next option down is guest network, so you can enable a guest network on your wireless there, and you can set up the name, the security, the password, and you've got access control here, so you can schedule it on and off for certain times if you want. And then you can allow them on the top, allow them to access the local network, and then you can restrict their bandwidth as well. So if you don't want them to use up all your bandwidth, so you can't stream any Netflix or anything like that, then you can do that as well on the guest network. Dhcp, so this is what actually gives your IP addresses to your network. Again, I'd advise probably just to leave this alone. You don't really need to do anything here. If anything that you do need to change is perhaps the primary DNS and the secondary DNS like we did before, to either Google's or any other third party you think is perhaps a bit better. Then you have the client list, and of course when you have devices connected, you'll be able to see them on this list here. Next is the address. So this is good for if you've got certain devices you want to assign static IP addresses within your network. So it could be your printer or anything that you need an IP address. So like an camera, then you can assign that IP address. It's always got that IP address when it connects to your network. Then you have forwarding. So this is virtual servers, and again, you've got to be careful around these features, is that this will open up your network to the internet, so it will allow people to come in, and potentially be a security problem. So just be careful what you're doing here with all these options for port triggering. DMZ, I'd advise, unless you really have a problem with a device connecting to the internet or you're trying to connect it from the outside, I would leave this disabled. Again, this is enabled, the universal plug and play feature. It was very good. So when a device like your Xbox or your PlayStation connects to your wireless network, it will automatically open a port. But of course, this can be a bit of a security problem as well, because if you have some rogue or connected to your network, then it can open up ports and everything else automatically. Again, for security issues, over convenience, I would personally disable this option, but again, it's up to you. So security, again, on here is quite important to leave all of these the same. So you've got the firewall, you can leave that enabled, and then you've got VPNs. Again, if you don't need these, you can disable them. If you're not going to have a VPN at all for your network, then you can switch those off. And ALGs, again, that's like an application layer gateway. Again, you just leave those enabled because you don't want to be causing too much trouble with your network. And again, these features for advanced security, you can read on the right hand side on what they do, but again, I would just leave them as they are. You do have the potential for denial of service protection, so you can enable that and then enable the other options here, but it might slow down your network, because don't forget this is a £15 router, so the processor is only a single core, so you might see performance drop. But then if you're not really reliant on too much performance, then you can give it a try and see if it works for you. If not, then you can switch it off. So then you have local management. So here you can set up certain computers connect to your network, and you can set up security, so it's only certain computers can log into the router. Again, if you're not too worried too much about it, you can leave it on the standard. All computers can connect. So this is your web management portal. So this is what we're logged into now, and it's currently defaulted to port 80, so that's HTTP. This doesn't really have a feature where you can set it to any secure, like your bank, the HTTPS. But as long as it's within your network, it should be pretty secure. And again, here you can change the port number but again, if you do, just remember when you log in, as it has an example on the right hand side, you will have to change the port number manually when you type in the URL in your browser, so Google Chrome, Safari or Firefox. Then you have parental controls, so here you can set them up. You have the MAC addresses, so you can enable certain devices, you can modify them and have here. So if we just go to edit, here you can see if you want the actual device and an effective time, any time, and status. And again, you can set different rules as well under the parental controls for the device. And under access control, so this is providing access management control, and again, unless you really need to, I would leave most of these options under here as their default, because you don't really need to be honest, on here. And advanced routing again, this is just if you want to set up a static route. Again, I don't think there's many occasions that you actually need to use this, but it's there if you need it. And again, you can pause on the screen and you can read the menus on the right. So now we have bandwidth control, and here this is quite useful. So if you want to set your bandwidth and things like that, then just make sure you type in the right speeds. So I'd advise you to get the speeds from like a speed test through Google or one of them websites that do a speed test for yourself, and you can use this here. If your internet is, just like a normal home, then you probably won't need it too much. And the same for the rule list here. You can set up bandwidth control lists as well. Again, this is more advanced, and in a normal home you probably won't need to worry about it. Again, this is another example of advanced features that perhaps you are available to the router, but perhaps you probably not ever use the bindings, but again, they're there, and again, you can read up what they are on the right hand side if you want to know more. Here we have the Ddns, so this is quite a good feature that will turn your IP address, your WAN IP address, into something rememberable. So this will turn it into something like you could set it up as router.noip.com. You could just type that in and it will come straight to your router, so you could access it from outside the internet. Again, because it's not totally secure, I would probably advise there was no need to set it up, but the option is there if you want to, so you can always access your router from somewhere else outside the house, and you can restart it or anything like that if anyone has any problems. But this feature doesn't really have anything secure in here, so I'd advise not to use it, but again, that's just my opinion. And then here it has IP version 6, so as well as IP version 4, that's standard on everything, so it is available for IPv6, and you can set this up. So this is your IP address, but as you can see where your LAN is and your local address, instead of being just numbers, it's got letters and it's much longer. So this is the new format that will soon eventually take over from IP version 4, where it's just a numbered IP address. As you can see here, it's enabled, so if you're with BT or most networks now, it's already enabled, and it should repopulate here with your address. And again, this is system tools, so these are some functions, so like time settings, so you can update the time. Normally you should get this from the internet, so you shouldn't have any problems with this. Then you have diagnostics, where you can do a ping, so you can type in like google.com and then ping that to make sure you've got internet connection. Next one here is your firmware, so you can upgrade it, so it's always good. Then you have factory defaults, so factory defaults here, you can then just restore it if you want to just erase everything and start from the beginning. And then you have backup and restore, so you can back up your settings for any reason you want to back them up, and then you have to erase it. You can always got a backup copy of that. And this option here is for restarting your router. So if it ever crashes or freezes or there's some kind of connection problem, normally a reboot will do the job. And then your password. So here you can change your username and password, so it's always good. Take it away from the default TP-Link or the admin and change it to something more secure. Then you have your system log. So here you can actually set it up to mail settings, and then you can forward it by mail, and this log will actually tell you what's going through the network and everything else. And lastly, we have statistics. So here it will give you more advanced information about the packets and the bytes and everything else, and which IP address device is actually going through the network, to give you more information about and it's got its tables. So that's a quick overview of all the advanced features that you'll find on this router. So on the next video I'll try and do one for the more upgraded version 14 of this router, because the firmware, even though it's the same model, version 14 has some more features and the more updated firmware. Okay, thanks for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.